this time we're doing it live. So Tammy's coming in. Um,
And to the Pick and Pay Winemakers Table, and a very, very exciting episode we have you lined up for you today. I can see everybody is getting ready in their kitchen. Everyone's bustling around. Please do keep your cameras on. We love to see exactly what's going on in your kitchen. I can see all of you have probably received your bags, and thank you very much to Pick and Pay Online for delivering those. Within those bags, we've got 3 incredible wines, 2 bubblies, which is amazing, and then lots of little bits of pieces for food, which we are going to create some amazing canapes and turn you into a little bit of a master chef. So this evening, really, really fun. We've got Danielle Coetsee from Boschendal, the iconic wine brand of Boschendal, been around for many, many, many years. You're really exciting to find out a little bit more about the wines that we're going to taste tonight from Danielle. And also I'll teach you a little bit about some food and how those pairings will work as well. So before we get going, obviously I'd like to introduce Danielle. She's going to talk a little bit about Boschendal at the beginning. But before we get going there, I want to just make sure that everyone's got all of their equipment ready in the kitchen. Make sure that you've taken out all of the little packets, snip them open, put them out, lay them out nicely. So it's really, really easy to get going as well. We're going to be doing a little bit of baking or a little bit of oven baking today. So either get your oven at a certain temperature, maybe 180 degrees. We can turn that on right now just to bring that up to temperature. If you don't have an oven, a microwave will work perfectly. I've got a little air fryer over here, which will work perfectly. So if you do have that, please do use that. Get that all ready. We're going to start cooking in a little while. But before we do that, Danielle, would you like to tell us a little bit about Boschendal and maybe a little bit about the wines that we're going to taste tonight?
Yes, thank you for having us, first of all. So Boschendal is one of the oldest wine estates in South Africa, and especially in the Western Cape and Cape Winelands. It was established in 1685. So a very long, a very rich history that we are very proud and very privileged to tell those stories through the wines that we have. So some of the wines here pay homage to some of the first owners. And then also, even on Cap Classique, Boschendal was the second producer to make a traditional method sparkling in South Africa. So touching on that with the bubblies that we will be having this evening, which will be the Brut and the Luxe Nectar. And then on the red wine side, we will go into the Nicolas. And that's also quite an interesting story because Nicolas was the second owner of the Boschendal estate, the farm. And he really established Boschendal for the agricultural entity that it is today. He was really a stalwart in agriculture and a brilliant farmer. And we have the privilege of telling those stories through the wines. So
yeah, I can't wait. I'm sure everyone can't wait as well. So very, very exciting. Obviously, we've got 2 bubblies. Cap Classique, obviously made under the method Cap Classique, the same way that it's made in Champagne. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So in South Africa, we refer to it as Cap Classique, made in method Cap Classique. So we try not to refer to it as much as MCC anymore. But it's a traditional method sparkling, which basically means that it's a secondary fermentation in the bottle. So there's no impregnation of carbon dioxide or CO2. So it's a natural fermentation process where we then allow the wine to rest for, Cap Classique needs to rest for at least 12 months.
On the lease.
On the lease, before we are able to riddle and disgorge. And that really kind of puts the stamp of quality and the focus in South Africa on producing a world-class sparkling wine.
Exactly. And I think that we are very, very proud of our Cap Classiques. And I think that's probably also why they decided to name it a Cap Classique. It's something that we are proud of. We know that we're up there in the world with creating incredible, incredible wines. And I certainly know that Boschendal been doing it for over 40 years.
Yes. So last year, 2 years ago, we celebrated our 40-year production of Cap Classique at the estate. So it's really an honor to be part of the history that we are able to kind of continue that legacy through the quality of the product that we produce.
100%. Amazing. Really, really good. Okay, guys. So I think that what we want to do is we want to make sure that you guys have got all your bubbly and all your wine ready. Make sure that those, I'm pretty sure that you have already, but I'm pretty sure that those bottles need to be kept at a nice temperature, not icy cold, but probably around 12 degrees or a little bit lower.
So we aim for, on the lower side,
Yes.
it would be 8 degrees.
8 degrees.
So ideally around 9 or 10
9 or
degrees.
10 degrees. All right. But that means putting it in on the ice, putting it in your fridge. I'm pretty sure that you have done that already. All right. Perfect. So we're going to get going. I'd love you guys to take your bottle, and we're going to start off with the Brut.
Yes, we will start with the Brut non-vintage.
Perfect. So you guys can open up your bottles at home, take them out, pour yourself a little glass. And while we're doing that, I just want to make sure that you guys are also aware that you can also, within this amazing evening, win yourself 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. And how you can do that is by taking photos and posting them to social media using the hashtags, hashtag Boschendal and hashtag PNP Wine Club. So if you also want to be in chance to win that, make sure that you also comment below as well. Give it a little bit of a comment. We love to interact with you. So ask us any questions that you'd like, whether it's to myself or Danielle about the wine, or for me about the food, and we'll explain everything to you as well. So great. And also, I can also see is you guys have kept your cameras on, which is perfect. We love to see what you guys are doing at home and what you are going to be creating. All right. So Danielle's going to be pouring us a nice little glass of the Brut. Really, really nice color, actually. It's a nice, very, very pale straw color, huh?
Yes, so the Brut non-vintage is a traditional varietal base of about 60% Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, 40% Pinot Noir. But because it's non-vintage, those percentages don't always stay the same year on year. But that's part of the quality focus when we do blending for a Cap Classique. So even though it might be a different vintage from that year, from that base year, so that means about 80% of the wine is from a current vintage where we have a 15 to 20% reserve or back blend component. So the true art in blending for a non-vintage is having that consistency in style.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. So people don't know the difference between a vintage and a non-vintage. Maybe you can explain it because you probably know a lot more about this than I do. But in sort of layman terms, really, vintages can differ from year to year because of the grapes, the climate, the weather, and maybe one or two different other things. And non-vintage, you try to keep that consistency of flavors, and you blend to try and keep that consistency every single year.
Yes.
Get it right.
Yes, that is exactly right. So vintage with a vintage Cap Classique, or even in Champagne, but specifically on Cap Classique, you want that consistency, like you said. And with with non-vintage, with vintage, you have that vintage influence. So there you are more susceptible to what Mother Nature blessed you with for that season. So sometimes it can be a perfect ripening season, everything went well, but then you also have the possibility of the season being kind of having a bit more of a weather fluctuations, so either heat waves or cold fronts or rain late in the season. Even though Cap Classique, grapes for Cap Classique is picked very early. So we'll start off the harvest with our bubbly harvest on our Chardonnays and our Pinot Noir. And it's definitely something that there's a place for all the different styles and categories. And what we also see with non-vintage, with Cap Classique, we require a minimum of 12 months on lease, but for Boschendal, our focus has always been on having that true elegance and that marriage of every flavor and component of the wine. So there we really want to give it as far as possible that extended contact time with the lease. So we average it around 15 months on lease, with the start of our disgorgings and the end. So disgorging, just to
let's learn about disgorging.
Just to explain the process. So when you have the second fermentation in bottle, where the bottle lies cerlat, it will lay there for 12 months at least, and there's a lees formation at the bottom. So for that lees to be disgorged, removed from the wine, it goes through a riddling process where it will go into the sort of point position, and from there, that little part of the neck is then frozen, and when we degorge, there's a crown cap on the top, and when that is tapped off, it expels that lees. So that is the degorgement process.
Exactly. And then what you would do is you would add a tiny little bit extra of whatever it might be, a little bit more of the bubbly in, with a certain amount of sugar, just to balance it out for the last little bit.
Yes. So there we will add the liqueur, and it depends on the producer and what they kind of in their style add. Some producers might even add a dash of brandy. But for the most part, it's a combination of sugar. It can be either refined or granulated sugar or beet sugar, and then also a wine component as well. But it also depends on the sweetness you want, so the amount you add, but then also what dosage, what wine do you use for the dosage? And that can vary depending on vintage or style. Personally, I think that is the finishing touch on the wine. So that is really the part where you have that last bit of influence on how it will show when it does reach the customer.
I would love to do that to myself. I really would. You've got a very cool job. All right, guys. So now that we've obviously poured this, please do take a sip. I think that it really, it looks beautiful, and let's see what it tastes like. Beautiful glasses, by the way. Very, very fine bubbles. Really, really like smooth and it's almost, it's very delicate and very refined.
So why the time on lease is so important is you truly get that marriage of every component, and especially with the bubble, the thing that makes it so unique and special and expressive, and how that bubble shows, how it rolls off the palate, how it kind of fills your mouth, and the sensation also. Is it does it have a stringency to it? Is it smooth? Is it well-rounded? And all those components play a role in and form your mousse, and how that's perceived is very important, because it is such a unique product to make, and it's really the closest thing we have to having a wine that's alive in your glass.
100%. Exactly that. All right, guys, it's time to get you guys into the kitchen. I'm pretty sure that you've got enough time. That oven is probably nicely hot, or you can just literally put your grill on. The first canapé, which we're going to be doing, which we're going to be pairing with the Brut, is a fun little take on a croque monsieur. I don't know if anyone knows what a croque monsieur is, but it's basically a really fancy toasty. It really is, but we're going to show you why it's fancy. Okay, so inside your box, you'll find this beautiful little brioche bun. Brioche is obviously an enriched dough. It's made with butter, and that really gives it a really nice sort of richness, which I think will go quite nicely with the kind of yeastiness and the toastiness. We've got some really great cheese. We've got some copper, and we've got what this is a bechamel, and I'll explain to you exactly what that is right now. Okay, so first off, what I want you to do is take your little bun, and we're going to make a little square, to cut out a little square of it. So when I place this onto the board, if everyone wants to follow me, I'll just ask the camera to come in here. What I want to do is I just want to cut off just the base of it ever so slightly. There we are. It's going to cut a very thin little bit of the base off and discard that to the side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to cut the little mushroom top off it, just about like that. All right, discard that to the side. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to cut off the edges to make a perfect little square. So that's going to go off. You're going to turn it around. You're going to cut the side off, turn that around. So you're basically just cutting off the crusts and you're making a nice little square just like that. Okay, so you've got your little square. Very simple, just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 slices out of that. So we're going to cut it straight down the middle, right down the middle. And now you've got 2 perfect little sides like that, which is going to be for our little sandwich. So I'm going to place this behind here for now. Here we go. All right. So now what we're going to do, a classic French croque monsieur always has bechamel. Very, very simple bechamel. Basically what that is, it's the base of a lot of different sauces, but it also can be used in a really good cheese sauce. So what this bechamel is, it's butter and flour and milk. Very, very simple. You cook it up into a roux, you add a little bit more milk, and you make basically it's a white sauce. So very, very simple. What I want you to do is I want you to cut off the end of your little piping bag, and I want you to pipe a good generous amount of bechamel onto the base of one of the slices. There we go. And that's just going to give it a really good richness. There we go. Onto the top. There we go. Cool. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add our ham or our whatever ham is normally used. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this really great copper. And that copper is it's a cured ham using basically the pork neck. And so what we'll do is we're just going to fold that on and pop that straight onto our list over there, onto our thing over there. There we go. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do another little layer, I think, and I don't even know where I put my bechamel now. There we go. Where'd it go?
Is there another one here?
There's another one. We better go. Literally don't know where I put it. Anyway, all good. There it is, underneath there. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to do another little layer of bechamel on top. Just a little bit. And now we're going to add some cheese. My absolute favorite. We've got some really nice Plain River cheese from the supplier, available at Pick n Pay, Plain River. This is the Plain River Stanford. You get Plain River Dambo, you get Gruyere, really, really great brand. All available in Pick n Pay. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a nice little grate of this cheese right onto the top. You can add as much as you want. I think the more the better when it comes to this kind of thing. There we go. A nice, big, healthy dollop of grated cheese. And now we're going to close our sandwich right on top. And the bechamel does not end there. All right, so we got another really good dollop of that on the top. Spread it right to the end. I want you to kind of get as much of that as possible. There we go. Use it all up. That's it. So now you've got a little bit of a stacked layered toasty with a great creaminess. Then to add a little bit of, it's a little bit more of a sort of a bite of cheese, we're going to use some Parmesan. And this is basically just very finely grated Parmesan, which we're going to sprinkle on the top. And that's going to give it a nice crust. There we are. And then, you know what? I'm going to add a little bit more cheese.
Why not?
Why not? Right to the top as well.
That looks delicious.
That's going to be crazy. Really, really good. Okay, so we've got some beautiful flavors in there. We've got some saltiness of the copper, nice sort of minerality, which I think maybe would work quite nicely with that. Richness of the cheese, the softness and the creaminess of the bechamel. So now you guys are going to pop this into your oven, either under a grill. You can stick it on into a pan if you'd like to, and you can literally give it a little bit of a heat. I'm going to put this into the air fryer very delicately so I don't drop it. If you do have an air fryer, this will work perfectly. I'm going to pop it right in the middle, or in the oven, as I said. It's perfect, just like that. I think put the grill setting on and grill it underneath there. So I'll pop that on, turn that on, 180 degrees, and we're going to wait a little while until that's nicely melted. I think that when we were developing these sort of pairings, it's quite nice to really kind of have a look and see what things work with the flavors. So there's not, a lot of people think when they're thinking about pairings that there's lots of hard and fast rules, but really it's all up to you. It really is. It's all about what you taste and what you feel. But like for me, when I tasted this, I got that little bit of yeastiness. I've got quite a lot of freshness, some lemon zest that came through, bit of orange, and I think also that minerality would work quite well with something with a little bit of saltiness.
Yes, with a Cap Classique, especially with a Brut, which refers to it being a drier style, so it has less than 12 grams per liter residual sugar. So that's about half to quarter of a teaspoon in a 250 ml serving. Yeah, the average serving. But how the bubble also complements richness. So the richness that you get from the wine, especially with the Chardonnay component, that can be quite well structured. Yes. If you take quite a good serving of something that's cream-based, a dish that has quite a lot of or stronger cheese in it as well. So those dishes usually pair really well with a Cap Classique, because the acidity on a Cap Classique, because it is harvested earlier, the acidity is slightly higher. So it does kind of also, it has that complementary effect where it cuts through that richness as well, but the mousse and the bubbles so complementing that creaminess and that roundness, that palate sensation. So
for sure,
it's a fantastic pairing. Cheese, the toastiness from the brioche, really wonderful idea to work with that, and with a lot of other dishes as well with Cap Classique pairings. So going for dishes that are more cream based, have quite a generous serving of a cheese or a cheese sauce, and then also you have your kind of regular favorites like oysters and creme brulee.
That's always a crowd favorite.
Definitely.
Exactly. All right, so we've got a couple questions coming through, and one of them is, what do we do in load shedding if we don't have an oven? Got the exact answer for you. Literally, you get a pan, put a little bit of butter into the pan, and if you've got a gas oven, a gas stove, pop that on top, and you'll just basically toast that from the side. If you want to turn it around and toast all sides, you can certainly do that as well. It'll work just as well. And while we are on that, please do use those hashtags PNP Wine Club and hashtag Boschendal. We'd love to see what you are doing. Woo! Sort of making sure that this isn't falling over. We'd love to see what you guys are doing, and really, oh, that came out there. Let's just put it a little bit back in there. There we are. It's going to get nice and brown and toasty. Please do use those hashtags. You have the chance of winning 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. So please use those hashtags and post. I can see everything that's going on in your kitchen. So it seems to be a lot more drinking than cooking at the moment. I hope that you're enjoying the bubbly, giving you some thumbs up over there. That'd be great. Okay, I really am enjoying this. I think this is an incredible MCC, or an incredible Cap Classique. I think for any occasion, any time of the day. And we were talking about pairings earlier, and we were saying one of the really great pairings of a Cap Classique is actually scrambled eggs. So that is basically saying to you that you can wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and have a glass of Cap Classique.
Yes, definitely. And also a focus point with Cap Classique as a category and as a style. And we see that with the amount of interest and the growth in the category, but also to have people realize that it is such a wonderful wine to experience. You don't have to keep it for only birthdays or New Year's. It's really a wine that is for the best any time of the day, any time of the year. It's great when it's warm as a sundowner. It's wonderful when it's cold and you have that richness of the wine, but it really is such a versatile style.
It certainly is. All right. And I had a little peek in there, and I think things are looking really good in our, well, perfect. It's got a nice little color on it. It's really hot, so we must be careful. But the cheese is melted beautifully. The bechamel is oozing out. The Parmesan is nicely sort of crusted. You can see it's all nicely oozed out there. I hope everyone's is looking good as that one. And if not, please keep that into the oven, get it nice and crispy, or put it underneath the grill. So I'm going to slice a little bit in half. There we go. For Danielle, she's going to be doing the taste testing today. You can place it onto your little boards that we've given you, and we can do our first little pairing. So over to you. Just be careful. It might be a little bit warm still. But what we always want to do with the tasting is take a nice good sip.
Cheers.
Cheers of our wine or Cap Classique. Let that roll around your mouth, and then take a bite of that little canapé and let the flavors kind of infuse, roll it around your mouth. It's rich, it's creamy. There's a lot of cheesiness going on there. It's a gourmet toasty, basically. These are also really, really easy to prepare if you want to do anything for your canapé parties. Prepare them all ahead of time, pop them into the oven. Absolutely delicious.
That is amazing.
For a cold winter's day in Cape Town, that's what you want.
It really gets that creaminess, and that toastiness is just phenomenal. And then that salinity of the copper.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of comes through at the end. It really just pulls it through all the way on the palate. That's wonderful.
Good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys are doing it too as well. As you said, use those hashtags. Send us pictures of what you're doing, and do also drop us any questions that you'd like to do as well. All right. Amazing. Number one done. Well done. I hope you guys are learning a lot. I certainly am. We're going to be moving on to our second one. Also a Cap Classique, something that is slightly different in terms of its flavor profile, but a category that really is growing immensely in South Africa and around the world as well. In fact, there's a lot of big brands that are changing and adding these to the list, to the repertoire. So the next one we're going to be doing is called the Luxe Nectar. All right, this is something very, very exciting as well, and also very interesting to see the differences between, obviously made in the same way as in the Cap Classique style, but different flavor profile. So Danielle's going to be opening up the next one, popping the cork. I asked if she brought the knife or the sabrage, but that was a definite no.
My warranty has expired.
The warranty has expired.
But so one thing that is very important, just on a bit of safety measures,
Yes.
Is when you open a bottle of Cap Classique, it's very important to hold it at a 45-degree angle. So that's where the beautiful science in wine and bubbles comes into play. So holding it at a 45-degree angle, it helps ensure that even though the gas that is released is expelled, it doesn't carry the wine with it. So a lot of the time, when you hold a bottle upright and people think, oh, it's gushing or there's wine coming out or it's spilling over, it's actually just because of the position.
There you go. And that's all it took, was literally 45-degree angle. We've learned something. We often get little tips and tricks, but that is probably the best one that I've heard. And also not letting the cork explode and go flying across the room, unless it's a big celebration, of course. But it's nice to have that nice, what is it called? The angel's kiss or something.
That little hiss that it gives.
Exactly.
But angel's kiss sounds better. So another thing on opening a bottle of Cap Classique, because of the amount of pressure in the bottle, can be anywhere from 4 or 3.5 to 6, almost 7 bars of pressure. So, I mean, considering the pressure in a tire, which is about 2 bars, really being sure that you have a firm grip on that cork and you twist the bottle. So you hold your grip on the cork, the bottle is what you turn. And as you release, what I like to do is I kind of tilt the cork slightly upwards. So you get that kind of that hiss of the release of the CO2, and not that very, I mean, we all love a good pop, but not that very expressive pop, because that also sometimes can lead to a bit of wine kind of creeping out to say hello. Absolutely.
All right, we can't wait to do that as well. We're going to get going a little bit on our second canapé as well, which is very interesting. It's also, we've got a little pita bread, which is stuffed with some curried, little pickled and curried yellow pepper. It's got some shaved courgette. It's got a nice little bit of whipped feta, and also some really nice zesty lime. And then this, which is really, really fun, it's actually a little crispy quinoa. So get all of those ingredients out, and we're going to get going with that one as well. while we pour the second one. So what I want you to do is, obviously you've got this little pita bread. You can use the same thing with the oven. Pop this into the oven if you'd like to as well, just to kind of give it a little bit of a toastiness. I've done exactly the same in my air fryer again. Very, very easy, like a little portable oven over here. But if you don't have that, same thing, pop it into a pan, just give it a little bit of a heat through. It makes it a little bit easier when we're trying to open it up as well. So just about 1 minute in there. All right, cool. So while that's just heating up, very similar in terms of color, very similar in terms of bubbles.
So with the base on the Luxe Nectar, or the wine that's used, the base wine, before it goes into second fermentation. So it's also Chardonnay led. So this will be about 65% Chardonnay, 35% Pinot Noir. So we still want that structure of the Chardonnay to come through. But the changing factor, so this also spends a minimum of 12 months on lease, with the average actually being 15 months. But the difference in style is because of the amount of sweetness. And that change in sweetness, or the amount of residual sugar in the wine, is achieved by the amount or concentration of the dosage when that cork or that crown cap is expelled, that we have the disgorging process. So our dosage, our liqueur that we add at that stage, the concentration, how sweet is it, how much is added. And this style, the Luxe style, or Nectar, is initially it fell within the Demi category.
Yes.
And there's quite specific parameters for the amount of sweetness. But a lot of people thought, well, Nectar, it is sweet, but sometimes not necessarily analytically sweet.
Sure.
But it still has that sweetness on the palate.
Yes.
So that's where the Nectar category kind of started and grew from. And it's definitely one of the firm favorites in South Africa as well. So here we have highest sugar concentration. This will be about 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And
at the end. Yeah.
So what that effect it has on the mousse and the texture on your palate is it has that very soft, very round, very lush, and then also because of the acidity still carrying it through, it still has that elegant finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also quite an important thing, or quite interesting thing actually, is that a lot of people, when these new categories of nectars came out, they really kind of thought that it was sitting within that demi-sec category, which generally is a little bit sweeter. And I think that what's interesting about this nectar is that really it's very much produced almost exactly the same as a Brut would be, and then just right at the end, that dosage of adding a certain little bit amount of sweetness just kind of brings it up, but it's not too sweet. And it's something that you can, it's certainly, and you'll see when we pair this, is that it doesn't, a lot of people think when you're drinking a sweet champagne, that it needs to be a dessert champagne, or it needs to be drunk with something that's sweet. This is so versatile. It really is. And if you had this with a butter chicken curry, it would be absolutely perfect.
So yes, exactly. With the Luxe category, with a demi-sec style or a sweeter style, it's very appropriate for food pairings where there's maybe a bit more spiciness, because that roundness, that sugar kind of helps coat that and also complement it.
Yes.
And then also as a style, it's not less than a Brut or a drier style. So I think that's where we want a lot of people to share the knowledge and share the story of the wines, and move away from the perception that it's sweet, it's less than. Actually getting that balance of sweetness on the wine and still not be having it overpower is something that I think is to be appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So if everyone's got their little pita breads ready, we're ready to go on to the next one. So what I want you to do is take your pita bread, if it's just been toasted ever so slightly in a pan, if it's just been popped into the oven or the air fryer, it's slightly warm. And what I want you to do is I just want you to take off one of the corners, basically like that. just take it off, and what we'll do is we're going to just open it up ever so slightly with our knife, just to make a little Peter pocket, basically, just like that. All right, take it all the way there, and we're going to fill that with a few of our really nice ingredients. So pop that onto the board, and what we've got here is we've got these little pickled, curried pickles, almost like what you would do like a Cape Malay pickle curry. It's got some curry powder, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of vinegar, and I'm just going to slice a few of these little slices just to pop into there. There we go, and I'm just going to pop that onto the side of the board. Ready, our prepared little bot there. All right, and then we've got these very cute little courgettes, and what we're going to do with that, and this is going to add a little bit of freshness. It's also going to add a little bit of crunch. I want you to take a peeler and pop that down over there, and we're just literally going to peel a few little ribbons of that. There we go. And also similarly, I'm just going to pop that down, ready to go. 1, 2, 3. I really like ribboned courgettes. It's very, very simple. It adds a little bit of freshness, a little bit of crunch. Super, super simple, and can be quite elegant as well. All right, and then we obviously have a little bit of some whipped feta. Very, very simple, same thing. It's whipped feta. You literally get feta. You can take a fork if you want to, add a tiny bit of milk, or if you don't want to add milk, it's fine. You just give it a little bit of a whisk around, and that comes nice and soft. All right, so I'm going to take the end of that. So we've got 3 components here, well, 4. We've got our pita, we've got our whipped feta, a little bit of our courgette, and we've got our pickled yellow pepper. So I'm going to open that up. There we go, just like that. Everyone can see. There we go, and I'm just going to pipe a little bit of our whipped feta into the base of that. There we are. And then slowly but surely, I'm going to start building this up with a few different ingredients. I'm going to just take this, and I'm going to put in our yellow peppers. Very simple, the same thing with that. Those yellow peppers have literally been roasted in the oven for very, very quick. And then what we do is we create a little bit of a picking liquid. So that would be vinegar, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of water, some onions, a little bit of curry powder, a little bit of sugar, and that'll be basically popped in like that. Very simple. And then the same thing here, bit of green. It's always nice to kind of contrast some colors as well as textures. When you're making canapes and you're making food, for me, texture is very, very important. It's nice to have some contrast in that to kind of give it a little bit of a differentiation. There we are. And then we've got 2 other last little components. One, which is a lime. I absolutely love lime. I'm going through a little bit of a lime craze at the moment. And the reason is because it's like, it's not only just sour and limey, it's actually super, super fragrant. It's got a really kind of like a fragranty color. If you want to just keep that open like that, there we are. My sous chef. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to zest a little bit of lime on top. There we go. And that is fragrant, and it really is. It's got an amazing like bouquet to it, which is amazing. So I love. Okay, there we go. Place that down there. And then the last little thing which we're going to do, which is quite interesting, is this. And this, in this little packet, it's, you know what quinoa is? It's an ancient grain. It's quite like couscous. It's a little bit like bulgur wheat, similar kind of grain. It's an ancient grain, lovely. Also,
I was wondering earlier what
quinoa. Yeah, it's an ancient grain. You can find this in Pick and Pay in the health section. So basically what it is, it's a grain. You cook it in water, and then what we've done is we've actually popped this into the oven, and you roast it with some spices. We've used some cumin, some coriander, and it actually ends up, pop this into your hand, you can give it a little taste. A really nice little crunchy topping, something nice to do. And if you do eat quinoa and you make quinoa salads and you got some left over, keep some, put it into the oven onto a tray, and it just adds a really nice kind of crunchy little topping. You can add it to the top of anything, even if you have, honestly, even if you have in the morning some yogurt, and you can pop this on top and it'll give it a nice crunch. It's quite
That
cool.
that is very crunchy.
It's good. It's
Wow,
good.
that's
All right.
really interesting.
Yeah. So there we are. Place that onto your board. The same thing. Please do take a photo. I'd love to see how your little mini pitters are. Also, another one which is really, really great for any sort of entertaining. If you want to do this in a very small little mini pitter that you'll find in Pick and Pay, or if you want to do your larger pitter, you can do exactly the same thing. Something different. All right. So I'm going to hand this over to Danielle, and we're going to do the second pairing of the evening. So same thing that we did before. Have a look at your glass. Take a good sip. Let the flavors roll around. With this also, it's actually quite nice to kind of move this around your mouth. This is really, this is obviously with a brut, it's quite good to kind of get that straight onto the middle of your tongue. But this, it's a little bit more sort of rounder, and because of the sugar, kind of you can coat it around the rest of your mouth.
So the one thing that I also, in terms of glass shape, and that is a big influence on how a wine presents itself, but also where you find the aroma in the glass. So you go quite deep, or I like to, especially with Cap Classique, because that first whiff can sometimes be quite intense with all the CO2,
For sure.
but kind of allow it to linger and then slowly move away, taking in all those lovely aromas. So you get a bit of that yeastiness coming through, a bit of that citrus. I'm still smelling the lime. It's beautiful. And then on the palate as well, I believe the best wines have true balance. So what they promise on the nose, what they deliver on the entry, and then continue giving all the way onto the finish, that is a well-balanced wine.
Yes.
And the same with the pairing. So you get pairings where it's complementary, or sometimes it's even quite different sides of the spectrum. But somehow when they come together, it does work. But with a Cap Classique, it's also that entry. So what is the flavor profile at the front of your mouth, and how does the bubble also swell out, the mousse sensation on your mid palate? Yeah. And then also the acidity on the back. So are we going to
You go for it. No, you go right ahead. Just take a bite. Take a bite. It's all good. All right. Yeah. So that is also, it's a little play on sort of that Greek style, I think, as well. There's obviously the feta, there's the courgette, a little bit of pickled red pepper, crunchy quinoa. Sort of adds a few little layers. And I think that also the same thing here. I think that feta cheese, which is quite creamy, which is quite sort of like got a creamy mouthfeel. This also definitely cuts a little bit through that, which is quite nice.
What's so wonderful about this is that, like you just mentioned, that feta, that creaminess, and how it actually kind of coats your palate, and then also that lime, and that citrus coming through. But it's so in line with the style as well, and with Cap Classique, that bit of acidity and that crunch. It's just something so adds that bit of extra touch.
Good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it too as well. Please do post those pictures, and you have the chance of winning 300 rands worth of Smart Shopper points just by taking a photo and using the hashtag PNP Wine Club as well as hashtag Boschendal. So do take those pics. Ask us any questions that you'd like to. We'd love to hear from you. As I said, we can see some really good cooking going on there. And what's really exciting at the moment is that we're getting a huge amount of full boxes at the moment. So you have the opportunity to purchase a box with four for 4 people. And I can see quite a few nice little parties happening there. You've got 3 bottles of wine. It's a Thursday, and there's no reason why you shouldn't finish them all.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, exactly. All right, good stuff. So we've done 2 bubblies, really, really good, and really enjoyed that. And now something slightly different. We're going to move on to a red, which is a kind of maybe a natural progression when you are doing a tasting. You want to start with something slightly lighter and move on to something which is a little bit more robust. And something which is very, very interesting to me as well is this red, which is part of what range is that part of the Boschendal range?
So it's part of the heritage range.
Yeah.
So it's the appellation. So here, what's really important is the site specificity. So where it's from, the terroir. So this is from Helderberg and
Yeah.
Stellenbosch. And then also some of the other sites in Stellenbosch that we have for the Shiraz, and then also Elgin, which high elevation, really cool climate, and with a real focus on that cool climate and that
Yes.
elegant expression, that real fruit purity that comes through on the wine. So Nicolas, as I mentioned, was the second owner of the Boschendal estate. So here it's also a bit of a tip of the hat to the history of the estate.
Yes.
So remaining innovative with blends and styles. So this blend is a cab-based Bordeaux blend with a dash of Shiraz. So it brings that added element of spice and intensity to the wine.
From the Shiraz.
From the Shiraz,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting also that the region specific, as you said. So Elgin being the home of Shiraz, almost. Hey, is that where the Shiraz is from? The Elgin region?
So the Merlot component
Merlot.
is from the Elgin
Okay.
site, and then there's two very specific, beautiful vineyard sites in Stellenbosch.
Okay.
And then the Bordeaux varietals, for the most part, are from the Helderberg.
From Helderberg.
So
okay.
it's considered the golden triangle. So just that intensity and that purity of fruit, really where red wines are able to develop, not just in ripeness on the vine, but also in their ability to develop throughout the maturation process
Sure.
and in the glass. So really a truly unique site, what we considered one of the best in the Cape Winelands.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to try it. And this is really some really great ruby, dark ruby color, hey? Really beautiful. And these glasses are incredible as well. I really do like it. And just bring that up to your nose. Just see what you will smell, what you are smelling. What are you getting on the nose?
So I'm getting quite a hint of really dark cherry. There's some ripe plum, a hint of cassis.
Yeah.
And then on the spice side, I do get a bit more of a white pepper than a dark black pepper.
It is interesting.
And then kind of that mocha chocolate, not too much, but there's a hint of it there, that spiciness as well.
Definitely. All right, good. So do exactly that. Pour into your glass. I'm sure that also it'll be nice to kind of just open it up in a nice wide glass as well. And while we're doing that, we're going to obviously get going on our third canapé for the evening. Something really nice and decadent, something really nice and chocolatey. We've got this beautiful little tart case. Very simple. You can make these at home. It's literally, it's butter, flour, and a little bit of sugar. So super simple. You make a little dough, you roll it out. You can press it into a little tin if you want to, or I'm pretty sure that a lot of the Pick and Pay bakeries will also be able to supply this to you as well. All right. So over here in this other little piping bag, we've got a chocolate ganache. And chocolate ganache, also, you guys have to do this at home. This is also super simple. You take chocolate, you add a little bit of cream to it. You add chocolate and you heat it up. You add a little bit of cream to it and you whisk it up, and you basically make this really nice soft chocolate spread, almost like a little Nutella, really. If you added some hazelnuts, you would basically be making your own little Nutella. So what I want you to do is I want you to open that up, and here we are. I want you to press it all the way out, and we're going to be making this really great chocolate ganache tart. So into your tart cases, all the way, put all of it in there. There we are. I want you to fill that up. This is going to be extremely nice and decadent. There we are, right to the top. And if you've got a little spoon, you can just basically top that off like that. There we go. There we go. I'm going to pop that down, and we're going to top it with a few little bits and pieces now as well. So I think while we're doing that, let's everyone keep up and make sure that they're in the same place as us. We're going nice and slowly for everyone tonight. And yeah, I think that when it comes to pairings for this as well, we'd like to do something maybe sweet for the guests at home, something to end off the evening. And I think this wine would work quite nicely with that dark chocolate and obviously berries and, you know, that kind of that cherry flavor that come through as well.
Definitely the Cabernet and Shiraz specifically are excellent pairings for dark chocolate.
Yes.
And then also you have that kind of component that in the wine, that richness that comes through, and that with the sweetness of the chocolate, that really balances out beautifully. It's very complementary. And then because it's a red blend, it does give itself to being quite versatile as well with what you want to pair it with. It can be anything from a meaty dish that's a kind of an air-dried meat, air matured, and then dry matured. So dry
aged.
Dry aged. Oh my goodness. Dry aged. Barrel maturations and all. So dry aged, and then also dishes that can be a bit heavy for white wines, but where red wines are really able to carry those flavors as well. And with the fact with the Merlot and Malbec components that are usually quite more on the rich and the red fruit spectrum, it does give itself to being able to pair quite well with dishes that have a bit of a berry base or even a jus. So
there we go. Exactly. Yeah, so I think with this one as well, what we've tried to do is we've also tried to give it something slightly different with instead of using berries, we've actually gone with like a sort of sour cherry coulis, which is quite nice as well, which I think that would work quite nicely. So the same thing, open up your little piping bag over there, and this you can just either do little dollops around. Child might just do, there we go, a few little dollops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's cool. Or you can just do a little drizzle on top. And then just to add its last little bit of decadence, we're back again with our grater. We've been zesting all night. There we are. We're going to add a little bit. I'm going to use the end so I don't get any of the other stuff. A little bit of dark chocolate. So that dark chocolate, we're just going to grate straight over it. And with the thing with the dark chocolate, I always like to use a dark chocolate over a milk chocolate because I think that you get much more of those cocoa notes, those sort of slightly more savory notes than you would with a milk chocolate. Sometimes milk chocolate is just a little bit overly sweet, and I think that with the dark chocolate is and a little bit of like a savory kind of richness to it without being overly sweet.
And dark chocolate also pairs really well because it has that intensity and that tannin to it as well. That kind of, it has the ability to form that almost dryness on the palate. That is very complementary as well with Cabernet or darker, more intense Shiraz style. So having both of those components in this wine as well really makes it something that is a great pair for chocolate,
for sure,
especially dark chocolate.
Yes, exactly. And I think that with this Shiraz component of this, it really it's softened. The tannins aren't particularly strong. I think it's quite a soft kind of really enjoyable wine.
The art as with blending for a base wine, but even more so with a red wine, where what you decide now has a very influential role in how that wine will show when it's bottled and when the consumer opens it. So with blending on red wine, for us, it's a vineyard selection and site-specific process, and from there, a barrel selection. So it's not just that, oh, these components may work well together, we'll put them together. It's like a good pairing. Sometimes you have 5 great ingredients, but somehow when you put them together, they don't always work. So with blending, that's a lot very similar with red wine. So it's barrel selections, it's looking at each component in itself for what it is and how it shows and what you think it will bring to the blend, but then also doing that trial and doing that pre-blending to see how do these complement each other as well. And that's a phenomenal skill that Jacques Follien, our cellar master, has with red wine blending. So I think this is a beautiful wine. It's elegant. It has that refined tannin, and those subtle but continuous flavors that keep on developing.
Exactly. So I think that's time that we gave this a little go. You're going to try our final canapé, something nice and decadent, something to end off the evening quite nicely. The little tartlet filled with some chocolate ganache, a little bit of sour cherry, and a grating of the dark chocolate. So same thing, give your glass a good swirl, take a nice good sip, work it around your mouth, and take that canapé, last little dessert canapé, and just see what it's like basically afterwards. Take a little bite before, take a bite afterwards, and you'll see that those flavors sometimes change. They kind of become a little bit different. I'm sure that Danielle looks like she's enjoying it. I hope she's enjoying it. 2 nods gives it 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. Good stuff. All right, amazing. Guys, I'm sure that you please have been posting photos. I've seen you guys in the kitchen. Please do use that hashtag. We are going to be announcing our winners very, very shortly for the 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. But not only that, you guys have been winning that, but you also, if you look inside your bag, you guys really have got some incredible deals here as well. You have a voucher for 100 Rands worth of 100 Rands off your next purchase on Pick and Pay online. Just use the voucher code Boschendal100 and you get 100 Rand worth of your next purchase, as well as getting 25% off these wines as well. So very, very lucky. You guys have really won this evening. But the real winners for this evening are the ones that have got the 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. Danielle, would you like to read, if you can, behind there, who of these 3 winners might be?
Okay, so do I pick one? Or?
You pick all 3. You read them all out.
Fantastic. So congratulations to Joe Trainer, Bernard Bulema, and Claire Beckman. Bernard, I hope I said your surname correctly.
You pronounced it pretty well, I'm pretty sure. All right, amazing, guys. So thank you very much. I think we've had an incredible evening tonight. We've learned a lot about not only MCC or Cap Classique, as well as some beautiful red wine as well. I hope you guys have explored your kitchen, made sure that you become a little bit of a master chef, and I've learned a lot as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to everyone that was took part in this little masterclass.
Yeah.
It was wonderful, and thank you for the amazing pairings. They were really phenomenal, and just on this last one as well, that's complimentary of the sweet but that more structured kind of texture of the chocolate with that bit of acidity on the with the coulis. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I think that we need to have a raise a glass also in a celebration of life as well. Unfortunately, today was Raymond Ackerman, our founder, passed away. Very, very unfortunate, but it is a celebration of life. And I'm pretty sure that he touched a lot of people around South Africa. He was an absolute visionary, somebody that we all looked up to. And we really are very sad for his loss, but we just obviously want to pass on our condolences to his family and during this time. But really, as from us, he really was a visionary, and we thank him for everything that he's done, and we celebrate his life. And so I think we should raise a glass and to cheers to Raymond. And thank you very much for having us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us, and will have another one next month. And also, please do also look out for the information about our next Pick and Pay Wine Festival in Johannesburg, which is happening on the 4th of November at Wanderers. So get your tickets quickly. They do sell out almost as quickly as these sell out. These have been sold out every single time. So congratulations on getting your glasses. And thank you very, very much. And to Pick and Pay Wine Club, thank you very much to Pick and Pay Online also for delivering those boxes. And hopefully we'll see some of you at the next one. Thank you very much, Danielle.
Thank you.
Cheerio.